Tamara, the janitor, was leaning against the wall, staring at one point and thinking about random things, not paying attention to the noise around her. Soon, the crowd of people will leave, and she will quickly clean the floor and then go home. In her mind, she was already rushing to the store to get groceries and think about what to cook. Some man running by pushed her and didn't even turn around to apologize. Tamara was distracted from her thoughts and looked after the rude man. At the last second, he jumped into the subway car and the doors closed. People began to crowd on the platform again. A teenager caught the janitor's attention. She didn't like such rude people. He took his gum out of his mouth and threw it on the floor. He didn't give a damn about the people around him. Some passengers were angry and wanted to say something, but the boy was wearing headphones. He danced, and someone's comment went unnoticed by him. Tamara didn't want to tolerate it. She decided to teach the boy a lesson, headed in his direction, and immediately groaned. The boy danced to the edge of the platform, and now his foot was already stepping into the air. Just a moment, and the teenager fell to the tracks. While people were thinking about what to do, looking around, and trying to call someone for help, Tamara took action. Tamara couldn't see anything, pushing people away. She followed the boy's green jacket, which dived down somewhere in the distance. But with each passing second, the terrible roar of the train sounded louder and louder. Or maybe it was only in her head, because she could hear nothing but the shouting. The boy was lying on the tracks and didn't know what to do. He looked up with frightened eyes and took no action. The woman shook the teenager, and he looked at her and squeezed his eyes shut. Tamara grabbed his arm and started to lift him, but the boy was in no hurry to get up. She thought the child was hurt, but it seemed to be just a shock. "Get up, the train is coming," she said nervously, pulling the boy. "Any pain? Can you move?" Suddenly, she came to her senses and heard people's voices and the train's roar. She picked up the boy and dragged him. Somehow, the boy got to his feet and got out. Then Tamara, watching the lights of the approaching train coming out of the tunnel, climbed up. A crowd had already surrounded the boy. The train came and left before it could pick up all the passengers who were looking at the victim with their mouths open. Is he alive? Is he okay? Someone from the subway staff came up, and Tamara was leaning against the wall again, breathing heavily, and heard someone loudly say, "Alive, perfectly fine, just scared." The janitor sighed and smiled. "Good. My heart is calm now. If God forbid something happened, how would his mother feel?" Tamara put herself in the woman's shoes. An ambulance took the boy to the hospital. Shock suspected fracture, but not fatal. He was no longer in danger. Tamara quickly finished cleaning and hurried home. In her head, she was planning what to buy and what to cook again. She had not yet fully come to her senses. In the morning, the police came to her apartment. Tamara opened the door wearing an old bathrobe with messy hair. She was 54, but she looked 60 or even older. Tamara smiled bewilderedly and asked who the police were looking for. The young policeman called her by name, which made her nervous. She looked fearfully at the second, older man in the uniform and anxiously put her hand to her heart. "Scared?" smiled the first policeman. "If you're afraid, it means you have done something wrong." The second policeman felt ashamed of his colleague's bad joke and clarified that the woman had been reported for injury to a child. Tamara froze and tried to remember which child they were talking about, but found no reason for such a report. There must be some mistake. I don't even know any children. She had already forgotten yesterday's episode. She had no idea that she had harmed that boy. But it turned out that the police came because of yesterday's incident. The woman still could not believe what was happening. What harm were they talking about? She saved a teenager. Could this be a stupid joke? Was someone testing her reaction? People usually thank each other for that, but there was no mistake, no one joking. The boy was hurt. His arm was broken. The older policeman grudgingly explained everything and said they realized it was nonsense, but the teenager's mother made a scene at the station, demanded to accept a report, and threatened them. She also went to the subway administration, made a scene there, found out everything about the janitor, armed herself with hard facts, and came to the police. The janitor was an ex-convict, which meant she was a danger to society. She had inaccurately pulled her son by the hand while helping him, and now the boy would have to forget about his future. The boy was an athlete, and competitions are now out of the question. The doctors said that her son's athletic career would be ruined. Tamara understood his mother could send her to jail because she could not pay any compensation to the victim. The senior police officer saw the conditions in which the woman lived, and he realized that too. He said that if this mother is so determined, she can do anything. Tamara lived in a small, shabby apartment on the outskirts of the city. The room smelled of medicines, and the atmosphere was miserable. The police wanted to get out of the apartment as quickly as possible. Tamara looked miserable, a life-tortured woman nursing a bedridden patient. In the next room, the policeman noticed a bed. Next to it was a shabby bedside table with a pile of medicine and someone breathing heavily. The woman asked what she would do now. The police invited her to the station to testify. Tamara was nervous and cried, "I have a sick person at home. No one will look after him." Tamara looked at the guy sadly. "Why are you panicking?" said the young policeman. "You're not going straight to jail. You will go home today." "I have to give him the pills and get dressed," Tamara said. The police officers looked at each other and said they would wait. The young policeman went out for a smoke, and the other remained in the apartment. He didn't want to be in that musty apartment, but he felt sorry for the woman and wanted to know what happened in the subway. His partner wasn't empathetic. He would have laughed at the senior cop's empathy. While Tamara fussed, he began to ask about the incident. The woman explained what had happened. She was only near the boy because the troublemaker had thrown his gum on the floor. She wanted to scold him, but ended up saving him. The policeman knew the boy's mother was wrong. Any other person would have thanked Tamara, but this hysterical woman wants to make a profit. The kind-hearted policeman promised to help the woman defend herself against the boy's mother. Tamara testified, returned home, and waited anxiously for what would happen next. She was fired because of the situation and had to look for a new job. She had a criminal record, and it was hard to find a job, but the policeman tried to help her. He helped Tamara defend herself, visited her, and brought her groceries. Tamara told him that she was taking care of her disabled son and was afraid of going to jail again because then he would be all alone. He would not survive. If Tamara returned to prison, her son would have no chance for everyday life. Tamara takes proper care of him, and if he ends up in some state facility for the disabled, that will be his ticket to the other world. He is only 21. He was a healthy young guy, graduating from university and working part-time at a construction site. The working conditions there were horrible, and the wages were low. But he was okay. It was just a temporary job. But it was also his employer's fault that safety procedures were not maintained. The owner cut corners on everything. One day, an accident happened because the scaffolding was not properly fixed. Only Tamara's son was hurt. Luckily, everyone was at lunch, and he was the only one there. Otherwise, there would have been more victims. The boy hurt his back. The mother went to the hospital. At first, all she wanted was for her son to survive. A couple of days later, when it was clear that the boy's life was not in danger, she went to the construction site to get compensation, but the company owner said that her son had not been at work that day and had been hurt somewhere else. The woman tried to get the truth. She talked to her son's coworkers and went to the police, but nothing helped. Her son's coworkers said they understood everything, but they would not say anything against the boss or they would lose their jobs. It turned out that they received a bonus for their silence. As a result, the woman achieved nothing, but made things worse. She was accused of slander and extortion of money. She couldn't believe it when the court sentenced her to a year in jail. She couldn't prove anything, lost her job, and ended up in jail. She had previously worked as a teacher, but with a criminal record, she could no longer work at the school. She spent several months in jail, and then she was released early. She took her son out of the nursing home and started trying to get him back on his feet. She had to sell her apartment and buy a cheaper place to live. There was very little money. Her son needed medication, and she had to pay for rehabilitation, so she started working as a janitor. Most of the money was spent on therapy, but it wasn't enough. She no longer has the strength, and if she went to jail again, all her previous efforts would be for nothing. But this time, there was no danger of her going to jail. There was no crime in the subway case, and the police closed that case. Although the boy's mother made Tamara's life a total nightmare for a while and never thanked her for saving her son. But Tamara did not need her thanks. She did it not for profit, but simply because she is a human. Unfortunately, she was fired without even trying to figure things out. Then she found a part-time job as a janitor at a mall and continued to nurse her son. In the meantime, a police officer requested from the archives the case on which Tamara ended up in jail. The company owner did a mean thing. Not only was it his fault a young guy got hurt, but his mother ended up in prison for nothing. And he knew that she was the only person who could take care of her son. The policeman solved the case. He persuaded the construction workers who worked at the site not to forgive the owner because one of them might get hurt the next time. The policeman got justice. The unscrupulous employer compensated the guy, and his company was subjected to severe inspections. Tamara was happy. Now she could pay for proper therapy for her son. He did not get back on his feet, but he started to move around in a wheelchair. There was hope he would get better in the future. Then he finished university and later got a job as an architect. And Tamara worked at the school again. We don't know what happened to that boy. It could be a good lesson for him and his mother. Thanks to him, justice was served. If you liked this fantastic story, please share it with your friends and leave a comment. Bye!